It was just another Tuesday afternoon. The numbers on my screen blurred together. Endless columns of financial reports, projections, targets. I barely noticed the buzz of my phone at first. A text from Olivia. I smiled automatically. My wife of 15 years, always sending little messages during the day, probably about dinner or the weekend plans we had casually discussed over spaghetti last night. I opened the message, and my world shifted on its axis. Ethan, I want divorce. Please direct all future communication through my lawyer, Mr. Peterson. Contact details to follow. That was it. No explanation, no argument, no goodbye. 15 years reduced to a sterile legal directive via text. I sat there, staring at the screen as the seconds stretched into an eternity. Shock hit first, like a fist to the gut, then confusion, hurt, anger, but above all, a strange, almost surgical clarity took over. She had drawn the line. She had set the terms, lawyers only. Fine, I typed a reply. Understood. And just like that, the marriage, and everything that came with it, was officially transactional. Autopilot kicked in. I closed my spreadsheets, pushed my chair back, and mentally shifted gears. In legal battles, informal understandings no longer mattered. It was all about written contracts, financial independence, formal negotiation, the rules Olivia had chosen. Our finances had always been somewhat separate, a lesson from my own parents' brutal divorce. But Olivia still held supplementary cards on my main accounts. She still received a monthly discretionary transfer I sent to her personal bank account. Not anymore. I opened my banking apps. Credit cards. Canceled. Reported. Authorized user removed. Monthly allowance canceled, effective immediately. Shared subscriptions. Netflix, Prime, Spotify. Logged out all devices. Changed every password. Car, leased under my name. Gas card, tied to a now canceled credit card. Insurance, left active for now, for safety, but noted to discuss lease transfer with my lawyer. 30 minutes. That's how long it took to surgically erase her access to everything tied to my name. Not out of pettiness, not revenge, just simple acceptance of the new reality she demanded. An hour later, I received another email. Mr. Peterson's full contact details. Formal notification of her representation. I calmly forwarded it to Ms. Cole, a top-tier divorce attorney I had been quietly recommended months ago. Not because I anticipated this, but because life taught me that hope without preparation was foolish. I included a short note. Client's spouse demands divorce via text. Requests all communication through counsel. Immediate assistance needed. Focus. Asset protection. Next legal steps. Retainer fee wired. Ms. Cole acknowledged. By the eye. Time the sun set, the wheels were in motion. By the time I got home, the house was eerily empty. Olivia must have packed during the day. I slept surprisingly well. Calm, cold, clear. 3 days later, Friday afternoon, my phone rang, unknown number. I knew instinctively who it was. Hello? A sharp, impatient male voice answered. Is this Ethan, last name? I am Mr. Peterson, legal counsel for Olivia, last name. Of course. I kept my voice level, speaking. My client is experiencing difficulties. Her cards have been declined. She has been cut off from funds. This is highly irregular during a separation. I smiled grimly. Mr. Peterson, my wife sent me a text on Tuesday demanding a divorce and insisting all communications go through legal counsel, namely you. I acknowledged and complied. Informal financial arrangements ended immediately. Future support will be determined through formal legal discussions between yourself and my attorney, Ms. Cole. There was a long pause. Papers shuffled on the other. She needs immediate funds for necessities, accommodation, transportation. I raised an eyebrow. Accommodation. She left the marital home voluntarily. She did not request exclusive use. That is not my concern at this point. Mr. Peterson's tone cooled. Your actions constitute bad faith. I chuckled softly. My wife unilaterally terminated our marriage and demanded legal-only communication. She ended the trust and informal status quo. I am simply honoring her new reality. Another silence. Tense. My client will seek emergency. Financial relief. Please do, I said smoothly. Send all filings to Ms. Cole. Good day, Mr. Peterson. I hung up without another word, and for the first time since that brutal text message, I felt something deep in my bones. Validation. She wanted. Cold legal war? Fine. Welcome to the battlefield you chose, Olivia. The weekend passed in eerie silence. No calls from Olivia, no desperate apologies, nothing. Just a growing void where 15 years of partnership used to live. I filled the time cleaning the house, not as a distraction, but a symbolic cleansing. Every folded shirt, every coffee mug she left out, all of it meticulously packed away into boxes labeled Olivia and for pickup. On Sunday evening, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number, I answered, bracing myself. Ethan, what the actual hell? Haley, Olivia's best friend. Mouth like a chainsaw, subtlety of a battering ram. I sighed inwardly. Good evening, Haley. Don't good evening me. Olivia's on my damn couch because of you. She can't buy groceries. She's practically homeless. The anger in her voice was palpable. The guilt trip thick enough to choke on. I kept my voice steady. Olivia demanded a divorce via text, Haley. She insisted all communication go through lawyers. I complied, exactly as she instructed. She's emotional. She made a mistake. Haley barked. Mistakes have consequences, I replied evenly. Hiring a high-powered divorce attorney and locking me out of personal communication wasn't emotional. It was calculated. Silence. For once, Haley didn't have a comeback ready. I pressed on. Olivia chose legal warfare. That means financial support, communication, everything goes through formal channels. If she needs assistance, her lawyer knows how to petition for it. She's scared, Ethan. She has no job, no income. She had a part-time graphic design gig. Play money at best, I corrected. She chose this path, Haley, not me. Haley's voice dropped to a venomous whisper. She's going to take you for everything. You know that, right? I smiled coldly. She can try, and I ended the call without another word. That night I received an alert from my bank. Suspicious activity on an old dormant savings account. Curious, I logged in. Years ago, Olivia and I had opened a joint account to save for a Europe trip that never happened. We forgot about it. $500 still sat there gathering dust. Apparently, Olivia had not forgotten. She found the debit card, tried to drain the account. The bank flagged the sudden activity, froze the account, and alerted me. I drove down first thing. Monday morning, explained the situation, and had the account officially frozen pending divorce settlement. It wasn't about the money. It was about principle. Olivia had demanded that all matters go through lawyers. Yet here she was, trying to backdoor money without negotiation. Hypocrisy, entitlement. Ms. Cole was delighted when I forwarded the bank's report to her. Proof that Olivia wasn't just a passive victim. She was actively undermining the very legal process she insisted upon. Monday afternoon, the real war began. Mr. Peterson filed for emergency temporary spousal support and exclusive use of the marital home support? Fine, but exclusive use of the house she voluntarily abandoned? Laughable. The documents demanded astronomical support, essentially asking me to fund her lifestyle, her new apartment, and her legal costs all at once. Classic strategy. Throw out a ridiculous first offer. Hope the other side panics. But they had underestimated one thing. I didn't panic. I documented everything. Every call, every text, every bank statement, and my countersuit was filed before nightfall. Olivia wanted. Cold legal warfare, congratulations. She was about to find out exactly how cold it could get. By the end of the second week, it was clear. Olivia wasn't prepared for a war she had started. She wanted a cold, clinical divorce, but when reality bit back, she panicked. The emergency hearing went as expected. Olivia showed up looking like she hadn't slept in days, dressed to evoke maximum sympathy. Loose blouse, no makeup, trembling hands. Mr. Peterson launched into his narrative. I was malicious. I had financially abused her. I was destroying her mental health. Ms. Cole stayed calm, surgical. She produced the original text, Olivia's cold divorce demand and the lawyer's only rule. She presented the bank records, the closure of the supplementary cards, the canceled allowance, all after Olivia's text, not before. She highlighted the fact that I was still paying for the house, the insurance, the utilities, the real fixed costs. The judge listened carefully. He wasn't impressed by Mr. Peterson's theatrics. When the judge asked Olivia why there had been no prior discussion, she mumbled something about feeling intimidated. I kept my face neutral, but inside I nearly laughed. Intimidated? By the man who still paid her bills even after she threw our marriage into a wood chipper via text? The result? Temporary support was granted, but it was much closer to our proposed figure than theirs. It would cover her basic needs, not her previous luxurious lifestyle. Contribution to her legal fees was minimal. The judge noted sharply that Olivia's own actions, cutting off communication, attempting to drain accounts, had influenced the outcome. Score 1 for logic over emotion. But Olivia, or more, accurately her entourage, wasn't done. Dirty trick, for 1. Monday morning I was called into HR at work. Anonymous complaint, allegations, misuse of company resources for personal legal matters, erratic behavior, possible mental health instability, baseless, but damaging if left unchecked. Fortunately, my boss had my back. The complaint was vague and nonsensical. IT checked the logs, no inappropriate usage. My work performance remained spotless. The complaint was dismissed in less than 30 minutes, but the intent was clear. Try to destabilize me, rattle my foundation. It failed. Dirty trick. 2. Later that evening, Olivia's mother called. Tears, accusations, emotional blackmail. How could you abandon her? After all the years she supported you. You're cruel, Ethan. I kept it short. Financials go through the lawyers, as Olivia instructed. She sobbed, accused me of heartlessness. I hung up calmly, every manipulation, tactic, every guilt trip, every backhanded ploy. It only strengthened my resolve. They expected me to fold, to pay up out of guilt, to hand over whatever Olivia demanded just to make it stop. But they misunderstood something fundamental. I wasn't playing defense anymore. I was systematically documenting every incident, the anonymous HR complaint, the unauthorized contact attempts, every call, every voicemail. Ms. Cole was building a legal pattern of bad faith and harassment. In the long run, it would help influence division of assets and possibly legal fees responsibility. Then came the car. The leased vehicle Olivia drove was still under my name. She refused to return it. Ms. Cole sent a firm letter. Olivia must either qualify to take over the lease or surrender the car within 30 days. Insurance would cease simultaneously. The clock started ticking. No more free rides. Olivia had opened the door to a world she didn't understand. A world where coldness wasn't cruelty, it was strategy, and I was just getting started. It didn't happen all at once. It was gradual, like cracks spreading through a glass you don't notice until it shatters. At first, Olivia still played her game. The entitled texts, the crocodile tear calls through third parties, the veiled threats through her mother. But then the consequences she never believed in started catching up. The first blow was simple. 7 days after the final notice, the lease company sent a repo team. At 2 p.m. sharp on a rainy Tuesday, while Olivia was at Haley's apartment, they came for the car. Neighbors watched. Haley tried to argue, waving her arms frantically. But legally, they had no leg to stand on. The leased vehicle rolled away, and with it Olivia's perceived control. She must have texted me 5 times that afternoon, each message escalating in tone. You heartless bastard. How am I supposed to survive? Without transportation. After everything I did for you, this is how you repay me? I'm going to ruin you in court. I didn't answer. Screenshotted each one. Filed them to Ms. Cole, another brick in the wall. Without a car, Olivia's world shrank overnight. The part-time freelance gigs dried up. Nobody wanted to hire someone unreliable with transportation. Haley grew less sympathetic by the day, suddenly realizing that a live-in best friend without a car or full-time job wasn't cute. It was a burden. Olivia's parents stepped in briefly, paying for ride shares. But they began asking uncomfortable questions. Why didn't you settle this quickly? Why didn't you keep the car lease on your own? She had no good answers. The mask was slipping. The princess narrative she'd built was crumbling under the weight of reality. Meanwhile, on the legal front, Ms. Cole was relentless. Full financial discovery was brutal. Every account, every transfer, every whisper of hidden assets, uncovered. Turns out Olivia had been sitting on far more than she'd admitted. A secondary savings account at a credit union, a gift investment portfolio under her maiden name, regular wire transfers from an aunt, actually her parents. Altogether enough to prove she wasn't destitute at all. Worse for her, she had lied under oath in preliminary filings. Ms. Cole sharpened the blade. This puts us in a dominant negotiating position, she said during our strategy session. If she pushes for trial, we'll petition for sanctions. But the real turning point wasn't in court filings. It was in Olivia herself. Through mutual friends, the few who still spoke to both of us, I heard snippets. Olivia snapping at Haley over chores. Olivia crying at Starbucks when her card declined. Olivia raging on social media in passive-aggressive posts. She wasn't playing the victim well anymore, because real victimhood, real consequences, weren't as glamorous as the fantasy. They were cold, lonely, humiliating. I kept building. Gym sessions turned into personal records. Old hobbies I had abandoned during the marriage came back. A few casual dates reminded me I was still human, still capable of connection. I wasn't rushing. I wasn't bitter. I was rebuilding, stronger, quieter, more focused. For the first time in years, my home was truly mine. The walls felt lighter, the air cleaner, the ghost of the life I thought I had. The illusion of love and partnership was finally fading. As the settlement conference loomed, Ms. Cole prepared the final salvo. Full asset disclosure with Olivia's hidden accounts, laid bare, documented harassment attempts, financial irresponsibility outlined in stark detail. Mr. Peterson's tone changed, from arrogant and condescending to nervous and conciliatory. They knew. Their empire of lies was crumbling, and there was no cavalry coming. The courthouse air was stale with the ghosts of broken promises, and today, another ghost was about to be born. I arrived 15 minutes early, shoes polished, jacket fitting like armor. Beside me, Ms. Cole reviewed her documents with the calm precision of a surgeon preparing for an operation. Across the room, Olivia sat with Mr. Peterson. Even from here I could see it, the cracks in her facade. Her makeup was flawless. Her designer handbag sat upright, a fortress of brand names. But her eyes, those windows to the soul, cloudy, lost, beaten. Opening salvos. We started with opening statements. Mr. Peterson, ever the dramatist, launched into a performance. Olivia, according to him, was a betrayed homemaker abandoned without warning, a woman suffering from years of emotional neglect, a victim of my sudden cruelty and financial domination. I almost laughed. I, the man she discarded via text like last week's groceries, was now her jailer. Ms. Cole didn't even blink. She countered methodically. Presented. The screenshot of Olivia's divorce text. Timeline showing financial cutoff only after her lawyer instruction. Bank records proving she had her own hidden accounts. Evidence of harassment and attempted sabotage, HR complaints, social pressure, car lease repossession documentation, all by the book. She finished with a single devastating line. This court isn't dealing with a victim of abandonment. It's dealing with a strategist who overplayed her hand. Reality hits hard. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense tone, asked simple, brutal questions. Why was there no prior discussion before the divorce text? Why were financial sabotage attempts initiated after the lawyers only directive? Why did Olivia have undisclosed financial reserves if she was truly destitute? Every answer Olivia mumbled dug her deeper into the pit she had dug. Her hands trembled slightly as she shuffled papers. Peterson grew more aggressive, sensing the case slipping. He accused me of emotional cruelty again. Ms. Cole smiled, slow and predatory. Your Honor, this entire proceeding is the result of Ms. Olivia's unilateral choices. Choices have consequences. We are simply following her rules. The offer. She couldn't refuse. Finally, we reached settlement discussions. Ms. Cole placed our offer on the table. 48-52 split of assets in my favor, due to proven financial misconduct. Olivia keeps her gift savings account but forfeits claims to future spousal support after 2 years. No future financial obligations, unless court-ordered modifications based on employment hardship. Each party pays their own legal fees. It was more generous than I wanted, but it was strategic. It offered Olivia a way out, if she swallowed her pride. For a long moment, silence ruled. Olivia's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Her lips moved, silently mouthing something only she could hear, maybe a prayer, maybe a curse. Finally, she nodded, almost imperceptibly. Peterson objected. She shook her head again, her empire built on illusions, manipulation. And entitlement had finally collapsed. The Queen was abdicating. Aftermath, broken crowns. The judge formalized the agreement. Papers were signed, notarized, sealed. Walking out of that courthouse, the air smelled fresher than it had in months. Freedom isn't loud. It's not a marching band or a parade. It's a quiet exhale after holding your breath for far too long. Olivia's new kingdom rumors trickled in over the following weeks. Olivia moved into a tiny apartment near her childhood home. Working, 2 part-time jobs she despised. Borrowing her parents' aging sedan. Haley, her once loyal defender, distanced herself, tired of being a free therapist and chauffeur. The world Olivia once ruled with smiles and passive-aggressive texts shrank to 4 grim walls and unpaid bills. Her social media posts turned from humble brags to desperate quotes about resilience and finding herself. I felt nothing. No joy, no vengeance, just a cold detachment. She wasn't my problem anymore. She had gotten exactly what she demanded, and reality had delivered it, wrapped in barbed wire. My life now. I rebuilt slowly, expanded my network, traveled without explaining myself to anyone, decorated the house without compromise, took up boxing lessons, something Olivia once called pointless aggression. Turns out, punching heavy bags was cheaper than therapy, and just as effective. New friendships, new experiences, no longer orbiting around someone else's emotional black hole. For the first time in 15 years, every decision I made was mine, and that was priceless. As I stood one evening on my back porch, sipping coffee under the stars, I thought, you survived her worst. You survived her best, and now you're just free. Some ghosts aren't meant to be exorcised. Some deserve to linger, quiet reminders of the wars we fought and the selves we refused to lose. I raised my cup to the night sky, to survival, to freedom, to never forgetting the price of peace. Life after the final gavel strike is strange. You think you'll feel triumph, vindication. You imagine walking into the sunset, credits rolling. Instead, it feels like waking up in a foreign land. Same streets, same coffee shops. But somehow everything's different. I spent the first month trying to recalibrate. Phase 1, cleaning the battlefield. The house, once a battleground of passive aggression and silent wars, needed purification. Started with the bedroom. Gone were the his and hers linens, the shared dresser space, the photos of vacations now tainted with hindsight. I redecorated ruthlessly, dark navy walls replacing the bland creams Olivia loved. Heavy oak furniture replacing the flimsy modern aesthetic she forced on me. A king-sized bed with a single nightstand. Mine. In the living room, the framed pictures vanished. I replaced them with abstract art. Color explosions Olivia would have mocked as childish. Her ghost lingered in small places, a hairpin stuck between sofa cushions, a forgotten sweater hanging in the laundry room. Each item went into a box. I didn't burn them. I wasn't bitter. I simply drove to a donation center, handed the box over, and never looked back. Phase 2. Rebuilding identity. The routines Olivia wove around us, weekend brunches, charity events, social appearances, they unraveled. Suddenly, weekends were blank canvases. I filled them with things I had once loved, but abandoned. Hiking trails she deemed pointless. Classic car shows she called boring. Jazz clubs she labeled pretentious. Slowly, piece by piece, I remembered who I was before becoming a satellite to someone else's orbit. The gym became my sanctuary. I punched, I lifted, I ran. The physical transformation mirrored the internal one. 20 pounds lost, muscle returned. Sleep for the first time in years came easy. Phase 3. New battles. Freedom is not without its enemies. Word of the divorce spread, not by me, but through Olivia's subtle whisper campaigns. Suddenly, mutual friends weren't available. Invites dried up. Social circles once maintained by Olivia's influence turned their backs, silently choosing sides without hearing my story. At first it stung, but then it clarified. Friends who vanish in storms were never anchors, just fair-weather passengers. New friendships formed, genuine ones not based on appearances or social climbing. I learned the difference between allies and acquaintances. It was a painful lesson, but necessary. Olivia's new empire through whispers. I heard updates. Olivia moved from her cramped apartment to an even smaller shared space, roommate situation. Her glamorous life dissolved into reality. Bargain shopping instead of designer boutiques. Bus passes replacing Uber rides. Part-time jobs that barely covered rent. She launched a GoFundMe at one point, rebuilding after emotional abuse. But it flopped spectacularly. I never even visited the page. What good would it do? Schadenfreude is a bitter fuel. It burns hot but leaves you feeling empty. I didn't need her downfall to feel satisfied. My peace was in building something better, not in watching her fall apart. Unexpected closure. 3 months after finalizing the divorce, a letter arrived. Handwritten, no return address. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Olivia. For a moment, I debated burning it without reading. But curiosity, that damn human flaw, won. Inside. Ethan, I thought I knew what I wanted. I thought freedom meant something different. Maybe you weren't perfect, maybe I wasn't either. But somewhere along the way I mistook entitlement for independence. I hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say it out loud. Take care, Olivia. No grand apology, no promises of change, just an acknowledgement. It didn't heal the wounds, it didn't erase the past, but it closed the book finally. A new chapter begins. 6 months post-divorce. My life didn't resemble what it was. It was quieter. It was lonelier at times, but it was mine. Found new passions. Volunteering at a youth boxing club, joining a weekend car restoration group, dating cautiously, with no rush, no desperation. I wasn't looking for a missing piece. I was already whole. The scars from Olivia would remain. Reminders, not regrets. They were proof that I survived betrayal without becoming bitter. Proof that loyalty to myself mattered more than loyalty to a sinking ship. Lessons burned in fire. When I looked back, I realized betrayal isn't about you. It's about them. Survival isn't flashy. It's quiet, persistent, stubborn. Revenge is overrated. Peace is the real victory. Most importantly, you teach people how to treat you, by what you allow, what you tolerate, and what you walk away from. I learned to walk away. And that saved me. One night, driving down a quiet highway, windows down, music blasting, I laughed aloud for no reason. Just pure, unfiltered joy. Freedom doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It whispers through open windows. It dances in the corners of a quiet mind, and sometimes it laughs with you under the stars. 6 months into my new life, something unexpected happened. I no longer thought about her every day. Olivia, the storm that once dominated my horizon, faded into the background, a distant thunder no longer worth bracing for. Life didn't just move on. It evolved. The return of color my world, once muted under the heavy gray of betrayal, began to bloom again. It started subtly. A stranger's smile at the coffee shop felt warmer. A weekend road trip alone didn't feel lonely. It felt liberating. Even the small victories, assembling furniture by myself, hosting friends at the house, felt monumental. One evening, I stood in my backyard, drink in hand, watching the sunset paint the sky in wild oranges and purples. I realized, this is what peace feels like. It's not loud. It's not a parade. It's standing still, finally untethered, and smiling at absolutely nothing. An unexpected message on a rainy Thursday. While clearing old emails, I stumbled across a name I hadn't seen in nearly a year. Haley, Olivia's best friend, the one who once screamed at me over the phone. Curious, I opened it, subject, Olivia. Hey Ethan, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I just thought you should know Olivia's left town. She's moving back in with her parents. She's not doing well. I'm not looking for pity for her. Honestly, after everything, I'm just tired. I realize she manipulated all of us. Anyway, you deserve better. Sorry for my part in everything. Take care, Haley. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Not because I cared about Olivia's downfall, but because, for the first time, someone from that old world finally saw the truth. It didn't bring satisfaction. It brought closure. Another door shut, cleanly. Forever. The mirror test. They say healing isn't when you stop hurting. It's when you can look in the mirror and no longer see a victim. One night, after a particularly brutal gym session, drenched in sweat and breathing hard, I stood shirtless in front of my bathroom mirror. Scars, physical and emotional, stared back, but so did strength. So did a man who survived, a man who didn't bend, didn't break, and didn't lose himself to bitterness. I smiled, not a smirk, not a performance, a real smile. And it hit me. I like who I've become, not in spite of the pain, because of it. The new chapter begins. Dating wasn't a priority, but life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. At a bookstore, of all places, I bumped into someone. Literally. I was reaching for a hardcover when another hand collided with mine. She laughed. I laughed. Small talk turned into coffee. Coffee turned into hours of conversation. Her name was Rachel. She was nothing like Olivia. Rachel was grounded, not dramatic, passionate without being performative, curious without being manipulative. I didn't rush it. There were no sweeping declarations, no grand romantic gestures, just two people slowly discovering each other brick by brick. It felt real. A lesson forged in fire. Looking back, I realized Olivia didn't destroy me. She refined me. She burned away the illusions. She melted down the naivety. She hammered my spirit into something stronger, sharper, and more discerning. Was it hell? Absolutely. Would I wish it on anyone? No. Would I change it? Not a chance. The man standing here today, solid, scarred, and whole, is someone I fought like hell to become, and no betrayal, no heartbreak could ever take that from me. The final ghost. One night, a year to the day since that infamous text, I found myself at a crossroads, figuratively and literally. A forked hiking trail, One path, familiar, safe, worn down. The other, rugged, wild, uncertain. I stood there for a moment, listening to the wind whisper through the trees. Then, without hesitation, I chose the wild trail. As I walked into the unknown, I thought, this is what healing looks like. Not rebuilding the old life, but forging a new one, on my own terms. The last ghost, the final chain Olivia left around my soul, snapped quietly behind me, and I didn't look back. They say after the storm passes, the wreckage speaks. It whispers through cracked walls. It hums beneath broken glass. It reminds you that survival is only half the battle. The other half is learning how to live again. The unexpected invitation it came through a mutual friend. A simple message, almost laughably normal. High school reunion, 20 years, Saturday night, you coming? I hadn't thought about my old classmates in forever. Back then I was the quiet one, the planner, the dreamer. No one knew that I would build a life, then watch it collapse, only to rise again. Part of me wanted to delete the message. The other part, the stronger one, whispered, "You're not hiding anymore." I RSVP'd yes, before fear could talk me out of it. Stepping into the past, the venue was a downtown hotel ballroom, all cheap lighting, rented tables, and the bittersweet smell of nostalgia. I arrived wearing a simple button-down shirt and dark jeans. Nothing flashy. Nothing performative. Just me. As I walked in, a few heads turned, some squinted, trying to place me. Others smiled politely, unsure. Then, slowly, the conversation started. "Ethan, man, you look good. I heard you're single again. She was crazy to leave you. You always were the solid one. Guess some things don't change." Funny. 15 years ago, I'd felt invisible here. Tonight, I stood out without even trying, a ghost in the crowd. Near the open bar, amid the buzz of conversations and soft music, I saw her. Not Olivia, thank God, but a ghost of who she used to be. Someone who knew her, too. Rachel S., a girl who'd once been Olivia's friend years ago. She caught my eye, smiled cautiously, and drifted over. "Didn't expect to see you here," she said, raising her glass. "Figured it was time," I shrugged. We chatted, nothing deep at first, just small talk, safe talk. But as the night wore on, the layers peeled back. Rachel hadn't spoken to Olivia in years. Apparently, after our divorce, the truth about Olivia's manipulations had bled into wider circles. Friendships dissolved. Family. Ties strained. Even distant acquaintances shook their heads and muttered words like selfish and toxic. It wasn't victory. It wasn't vindication. It was simply truth finally surfacing. And it tasted sweeter than any revenge I could have planned. Dancing with ghosts. Later, after a few too many songs played and the whiskey softened the edges of memory, Rachel pulled me onto the dance floor. I hesitated. Dancing wasn't my thing, too exposed, too vulnerable. But tonight wasn't about fear. It was about living. So I let her lead for a bit, clumsy, laughing, spinning through shadows and light. At some point, when the DJ slowed it down, I found myself holding her close, not romantically, not desperately. Just two survivors sharing a quiet moment in a battlefield that no longer defined them. And in that space between beats, a truth hit me harder than any betrayal ever had. Healing isn't just about moving on from pain. It's about reclaiming joy without apology. A new kind of goodbye. As the night wound down, Rachel kissed my cheek, whispered, "You deserve happiness," and disappeared into the crowd. Maybe we'd meet again. Maybe not. It didn't matter. She wasn't a chapter. She was a punctuation mark, a reminder that life was still being written. I stepped outside into the crisp night air, inhaling deeply. The city pulsed around me, alive, chaotic, beautiful. Pulled out my phone and almost absently deleted Olivia's old number. Not in anger, not in bitterness, in liberation. The echoes we leave behind. Walking home, I realized something. We all leave echoes behind us. Some echoes, like Olivia's, are warnings. lessons carved into the bedrock of who we become. Others, the good ones, see our handprints on the walls of memory, reminders that not everything falls apart. Some things endure, like resilience, like kindness, like the quiet certainty that you survived, changed but not broken, not bitter, better. Final reflection. Before sleeping that night, I scribbled one last thought in my journal, a habit I'd picked up during the divorce. I am not who I was before the storm, but I am finally, fiercely, gloriously my own. Then I turned out the light, and for the first time in years, I slept without a single ghost stirring in my dreams. Some endings aren't explosions. Some endings are whispers, a door closing softly, a chapter turning itself without a slam, and sometimes, just sometimes, the real beginning waits on the other side. The unexpected callot was a random Thursday. When it happened, rain drummed against the windows as I finished a late shift at work. The city outside was blurred and restless, neon bleeding into puddles. My phone buzzed, unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it. These days, peace was precious, protected. But something, call it instinct, made me answer. Hi. You don't know me, but I think we have someone in common. The voice was warm, feminine, a little nervous. I stiffened. The past has long fingers. Name's Lily, she continued. You don't know me, Ethan, but you knew my brother. I exhaled slowly. Lily. Jason's little sister. Jason, the college roommate who'd been like a brother once, who drifted away during my marriage as I got swallowed by Olivia's orbit. I hadn't heard his name in over a decade. Ghosts of another life, Lily explained. Jason had passed away. Cancer. He fought hard, died young, and in his final months he'd talked about people he regretted losing touch with. He'd mentioned me, often. Tears pricked my eyes as Lily spoke, her voice soft but certain. He said you were the only real brother he ever had. Said he should have called. Should have never let anyone pull him away. My chest tightened. Olivia. She'd resented Jason, said he was a bad influence, said married men didn't need single friends, holding them back, and like a coward, like a fool. I let her pull me away from him. The letter Lily wasn't just calling to share memories. She had something for me. A letter written by Jason, addressed to me. He made me promise I'd get it to you, she said, her voice breaking. We arranged to meet at a quiet coffee shop downtown. Neutral ground, no ghosts lurking in the shadows. The next day, nerves knotting my stomach, I walked in. Lily was waiting at a corner table, early 30s, kind eyes. Jason's smile softened by time and grief. She slid a plain envelope across the table without a word. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside, scrawled in Jason's messy handwriting, were just a few lines. Ethan, I'm sorry we let life pull us apart. You deserved better from your friends. If you're reading this, it means you're still standing. And if you're still standing, it means your story isn't over. Go live it. Love you, brother. Jay. I had to blink hard, pretending the sting in my eyes was from the cheap coffee smell. Lily. Didn't push. She just sat there, letting the silence hold us both up. Small steps. We talked for hours that afternoon, about Jason, about life, about regrets and the beautiful, messy business of survival. Turned out Lily worked with foster kids, kids who'd been through more in 10 years than most adults in a lifetime. I guess, she said, smiling softly. Jason wasn't the only one. Who thought you had something to give? She paused, almost shy. There's this charity event next weekend. We're looking for volunteers. She didn't push, she didn't guilt trip, she just offered a hand, not a rescue. Crossroads. That night back home, sitting by the window while rain washed the city clean, I stared at Jason's letter again. He was right. I was still standing, broken sometimes, scarred always, but standing. Maybe it was time to do more than survive. Maybe it was time to build something again. Not a relationship, not a replacement, just a life. on my terms, my choices, my soul. Not for anyone else's approval, not for anyone else's validation, just because I still had more to give, a new beginning. The following Saturday, I showed up at the charity event. No expectations, no pressure, just a man honoring an old friend's last wish, to live. Lily was there, organizing tables with volunteers. When she saw me, her whole face lit up. Not in romance, not in manipulation, in gratitude, for showing up, for choosing life, and as I handed out backpacks to kids whose eyes had seen too much too soon, I realized sometimes the best revenge is refusing to let bitterness be the final word. Final reflection: life doesn't hand out clean slates. It doesn't erase scars. It just gives you tiny moments, second chances stitched inside ordinary days, a hand to hold, a letter to read, a decision to show up when it would be easier to hide, and that's how you rebuild, not all at once, not with fireworks, but with small, stubborn acts of hope, one quiet victory at a time. Some wounds don't heal by forgetting. Some wounds heal by building, by stubbornly planting seeds even when the soil still tastes like ashes. The empty house, after the charity event, life shifted in ways I didn't expect. Small ways, mostly. The one house, once a cavern of silence, started feeling different. Not noisy, not lively, but warmer. It wasn't the kind of house people toured and admired. No gleaming marble floors or sweeping staircases, just a modest two-story, slightly worn, slightly stubborn, like its owner. I fixed the leaky faucet in the kitchen, repainted the guest room, hung new curtains that didn't match anything, but made the sunlight look golden when it filtered in. Little by little, the house stopped feeling like a mausoleum. It started feeling like a home again. My home visitors. It began with Lily dropping off donation boxes one evening. "I figured you might have more stuff to get rid of," she said, grinning. Then it was a neighbor, Mrs. Romano, showing up with fresh-baked bread. "Saw you working in the yard, thought you might need a break." Then a boy from the foster center, Tyler, a wiry 14-year-old with two big shoes and a serious face, showed up on Saturday mornings. "You said you know how to fix engines. I want to learn." I didn't plan it, didn't orchestrate it, I just left the porch light on. Sometimes, that's enough. The dog about. A month after the charity event, I found myself at the animal shelter. It wasn't a grand decision, no lightning strike of inspiration, just a rainy Tuesday and a sign that said, "Adoption event, give them a home." A Labrador mix with a crooked tail and soulful eyes pressed against the cage door. No barking. No jumping, just quiet hope. "Name Scout," the volunteer said. "He's been waiting a long time." I understood that feeling. Scout came home with me that night. He took to the house like he'd always belonged. No drama, no accidents, just a steady presence at my heels, in my chair, curled up at the foot of my bed. Another living thing that didn't expect me to be perfect, just present. The invitation spring was creeping into the city, green unfurling shyly from the cracks, the air losing its bitter edge. One afternoon, while fixing Scout's leash, my phone buzzed. A text from Lily. "Neighborhood BBQ this Saturday. You're invited. Bring Scout. No pressure. Just food and humans." I stared at it for a moment longer. Then necessary. Old habits die hard. The Ethan of last year would have found an excuse. Would have stayed home, safe behind brick and drywall. But this new Ethan, this Ethan who survived being gutted, burned, and rebuilt from ashes, he thought differently. Showing up Saturday afternoon, I found myself at Lily's backyard. Folding. Tables groaned under the weight of burgers, potato salad, lemonade pitchers. Kids shrieked around a sprinkler. Adults lounged in mismatched lawn chairs. Real life. Messy, imperfect, beautiful. Scout barked once, then flopped down contentedly under the table. I grabbed a plate, found a seat. No grand entrances, no spotlights, just showing up. And sometimes, that's enough. Lily smiled when she saw me, not a flirtatious smile. Not a calculated one, a real smile, one human being to another. Conversation later as the sun dipped low. Lily plopped down in the chair beside me. "You're different, you know," she said, sipping her lemonade. I raised an eyebrow. "Older? Grayer?" She laughed, a sound bright enough to chase shadows. "No, just lighter, like you're not carrying it all by yourself anymore." I thought about that. Maybe she was right. Maybe the burden hadn't shrunk. Maybe I'd just learned to carry it differently, with open hands instead of clenched fists. The letter again. That night, back home, I found Jason's letter tucked inside. The drawer where I kept important things, passport, insurance papers, old photos. I read it again, not with grief. Not with guilt, with gratitude. He'd been right. My story wasn't over. Hell, it was just getting good. Final reflection. Not every ending is tragedy. Some endings are pruning, necessary, painful, making room for new growth. A better life isn't built from vengeance. It's built from stubborn hope, from opening your door, from fixing your faucet, from adopting a crooked-tailed dog and saying yes to barbecues you once would have avoided. Life doesn't promise justice. It doesn't promise perfect closure. Only promises opportunity. And sometimes it shows up in the shape of a porch light glowing warm against the dusk, waiting for someone brave enough to step into it. New Rhythm's life didn't come roaring back like a summer storm. It returned like the slow tide, pulling at my feet, whispering, "You're still here." Monday mornings became coffee on the porch with Scout, watching the city wake up. Evenings became quiet walks around the block, sometimes chatting with neighbors I barely knew before. My days had structure again. My mind, surprisingly, had space. Space that used to be crammed full of Olivia's moods, needs, demands. I filled it with simple things. Fixing an old motorcycle Tyler found at a junkyard. Learning to cook something other than grilled cheese. Volunteering weekends at the foster center, teaching basic car mechanics to teenagers who needed skills, and someone who believed they were worth the effort. Not huge things, not flashy, but real. Connections Lily became a regular presence too. Never pushing, never hovering, just there. Sometimes we talked over coffee. Sometimes we didn't talk at all, just sat, letting silence be a comfortable thing. There was no grand romance blooming between us. Not yet. But there was trust. There was laughter. There was ease. And after everything, that felt like the rarest luxury. A letter from the past one rainy Thursday, a letter arrived. Not an email, not a text, an actual letter. Thick cream paper. My name handwritten in a familiar looping script. Olivia's mother. For a moment I almost tossed it into the trash. But something, stubbornness maybe, made me open it. Inside was a single page, no accusations, no demands, just an apology. I don't expect forgiveness. I know you gave Olivia more chances than she ever acknowledged. I'm sorry for my part in making you feel like less. I hope you find real happiness. You deserve it. I sat at the kitchen table, Scout's head resting on my foot, reading those words again and again. It didn't erase the past. It didn't fix anything. But somehow it mattered. It was like one last door quietly clicking shut. No slamming. No shouting. Just peace. The call a few weeks later, the manager of the foster center called. "We're launching a new program," she said, excitement bubbling in her voice. "Basic trades training, automotive skills, plumbing, electrical work, real jobs, real futures." She paused. "We need someone to run the pilot class. Part-time at first. We thought of you." The old Ethan, the one shattered by betrayal, would have hesitated, would have thought, "I'm not enough. I'm broken. I don't deserve a fresh start." But this Ethan, he just smiled. "When do I start?" Planting roots. The first class was chaos, in the best way. Kids with tough exteriors and tougher stories. Boys who'd been told they'd never amount to anything. Girls who'd been abandoned by everyone who was supposed to protect them. They didn't trust easy. Neither did I. It worked. One engine rebuilt. One joke shared. One tiny step forward at a time. Every afternoon I stood in that drafty garage, oil on my hands, chalk on the whiteboard, I felt something solid growing where the scar tissue had been. Roots, a small celebration Lily insisted on, throwing a little gathering after the first program finished. Just a few people, neighbors, center staff, some of the kids. Scout wore a ridiculous party hat. Someone brought a homemade cake shaped like a car. There were smiles, there were toasts. There was hope, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like an outsider looking in. I was part of it. Not because of what I had, not because of what I could give, but because of who I chose to be. Final thought. That night, sitting on the back porch, Scout's head in my lap, I realized something. The future isn't some grand road paved with perfect decisions and unshakable confidence. It's a path you lay one stone at a time with trembling hands and stubborn hope, and sometimes the best thing you can do after your world burns down is pick up a shovel and start planting again. 6 months later, time didn't heal everything. It didn't wrap my wounds in neat, sterile bandages and declare me whole. No, time taught me how to live with the scars. 6 months after the court stamped the final decree, I was still learning how to breathe in this new life. The house felt different, not empty, but open. I replaced the heavy drapes Olivia had insisted on with light, airy curtains, repainted the walls, tore out the over-designed garden she'd neglected anyway, and planted simple wildflowers that didn't demand constant attention to thrive. I wasn't trying to erase the past. I was building over it. One brick, one coat of paint, one messy, imperfect day at a time. Work, purpose, and something like joy. The auto program at the foster center had exploded. What started as a handful of skeptical teens turned into a packed waiting list. Local businesses offered internships. The mayor even stopped by for a photo op, shaking, hands making promises, but that wasn't the point. The point was Marcus showing up early to class because he wanted to get better. The point was Keisha, once so guarded she wouldn't meet anyone's eyes, now proudly explaining brake systems to a group of new kids. The point was them, learning they were worth saving. And maybe, just maybe, so was I. Lily had quietly slipped deeper into my life. There was no fiery romance, no desperate declarations, no rush, just quiet Sundays spent reading on the couch, grocery shopping together, her slipping her hand into mine during a walk without even thinking about it. She never asked me for things I couldn't give. She never demanded I move on faster, heal quicker. She simply stayed, like a lighthouse, steady, bright, waiting for me to steer myself safely ashore. And slowly, cautiously, I did. Echoes of the past. I still had moments, of course. Some nights, I'd wake up with my heart pounding, the echoes of old arguments ringing in my head. Some mornings I'd catch myself instinctively reaching for my phone, half expecting a passive-aggressive text from Olivia about groceries or bills. Ghosts don't disappear overnight, but they faded. Their grip loosened. They became background noise, not the soundtrack of my life anymore. A final encounter. One Saturday, I ran into Olivia at the farmer's market. She looked thinner, more brittle somehow, wearing designer sunglasses and a tight, nervous smile. For a moment, we just stared at each other, two people who had once planned to grow old together, now strangers standing next to a stall of overpriced peaches. She opened her mouth as if to speak. I nodded politely, then turned and walked away. No anger, no longing, just a clean, empty space where the pain used to be. And in that moment I knew I was free, truly, finally, irrevocably free. Building a life by autumn, the center asked me to come on board full-time, a real job offer, steady pay, benefits, chance to keep doing what I loved, what made me feel alive again. I said yes without hesitation, and that weekend, Lily and I adopted a second rescue dog, a clumsy Labrador mix named Benny, who slobbered on everything and everyone. The house, once filled with silent tension, now echoed with laughter, barking, and the clatter of Benny's enormous paws. It wasn't the life I had planned. It was better. It was mine. Reflections, sometimes at night sitting on the porch with Scout dozing at my feet and Benny snoring inside. I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the loneliness, the grinding exhaustion of survival. And I realized, surviving isn't the end of the story. Living is. Choosing to love again. Choosing to trust again. Not blindly, not foolishly, but bravely. Choosing to build, knowing that everything could fall apart again, and doing it anyway. That's real strength. A letter to the future. If I could go back and talk to the man I was a year ago, the one staring at his phone in shock, the one sleeping in a house full of broken promises, I wouldn't tell him to be less angry or less hurt. I would tell him, you will not stay broken. You will not stay lost. You will build something stronger from these ruins. You will find joy again. You will find yourself. And maybe, just maybe, you will even be grateful one day for the heartbreak that set you free. Final scene. The sun dipped behind the skyline, casting long golden shadows over the street. Scout stirred at my feet. Benny barreled outside, tail wagging like a windmill. Lily emerged from the kitchen holding 2 mugs of tea, a quiet smile lighting up her face. Long day? She asked, handing me a mug. Long year, I said, grinning back. But a good one. She leaned into my side, warm and real. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders, feeling, for the first time in a long time, whole. The future stretched out before me. Uncertain, messy, wild. And for once, I wasn't afraid. I was ready.